Hey everyone, you're listening to Party Time, My Golf Story with Kevin Walsh, and whatever special guest he has today, you can check me out on episode 9 of the podcast. Today I'm wearing Grayson clothes while I'm out practicing because I believe in look good, play good, and follow me on Instagram, Sophia Warren Golf, and hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers. And the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoastdreams.com. Now here's your host, Kevin Walsh.
Hey, what's going on? It's Thursday, August 9th of this recording. And if you follow us week to week here on Party Time, My Golf Story, you're probably expecting this episode to be part 2 with Dr. Howdy Giles, who is the personal photographer, a very close friend of Arnold Palmer, and the author of a book, The Unlikely Journey from Fan to Friend. But we've had some events in the golf world in the past 24 hours of this recording that we're going to push Howdy off to the following week and talk about the loss of Chi Rodriguez, one of golf's greatest ambassadors. Anybody that saw Chi on TV or in person could not have been impacted by the color in which he presented himself, the personality that he had, the game that he had, the just everything about him. He had such a zest for life, and he let it come out in his golf game. So I have a pretty cool story from my junior golf days, and our next guest has some stories about Chi as well. And so we're going to get into that in just a second. An update on the business of the podcast and everything, going along great since our relaunch under a slightly different title here, but still need your help as listeners and viewers. Like the podcast and subscribe to it. It's very important that you do that because the bean counters at Google, at YouTube and everything, they follow that stuff and it makes a difference in your lineup and where you're presented for future listeners and viewers to check it out. And a big thanks to our title sponsors, Party Drinks. If you're looking for a golf alternative drink and you're tired of things named after the time of the day or after crustaceans or beer or whatever it is, and you want a nice smooth cocktail that really fits the part of the golf course, try Party. I got a whole shelf of them behind them. Got some point that way. That's the thing about like TV. You get point the opposite way of where your eyes are. Try a Party. I think you'll absolutely love it. And if your dream is to live in a golf course community, a golf resort community, and Southwest Florida, the Sarasota area is your destination, or around the Tampa area and on down to Naples, nobody better than the golf real estate pros of Vince Visicaro and Gene Walsh from suncoastdreams.com, a division of fine properties in the greater Sarasota area. Both Vince and Gene are based at Lakewood National Golf Club, which is the home of 2 Arnold Palmer designed golf courses, and there are about 50 vacancies right now. So if you want to play some good golf, you want to live in a great place and be my neighbor, then give Vince or Gene a call. All right, so that's enough of the preamble. Always start the show like that. Let's bring the man of the hour. It's John Reilly, back for appearance number 3, the first 3-time guest on Party Time, My Golf Story. John, how's it going, buddy?
Great, Kevin. Fun to be back again.
Well, I thought when you were a guest for 2 parts, we were talking about your latest book, A Will to Win, which is the story of Philadelphia great amateur golfing champion William Hyman III. And I enjoyed that immensely. I want to get into how the book has been doing and some of the reactions of your readers to that. But I kind of felt like I gave your golf story a little bit of short shrift because we were focused on that. But I also want to lean on your expertise today in particular, because we're so close to the death of Chi Rodriguez. What are your memories of him?
Well, along with my friend Kevin Reilly, who Kevin was played for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think you know Kevin. He played linebacker for him. went through a dramatic surgery, lost his arm and shoulder. And we were very close from work. And we used to kick around with some golf, too. He always said he was a better golfer with one arm than when he had two arms. And anyway, a friend asked us to take over a tournament that wasn't doing very well. It was for benefit of leukemia. And we ended up becoming the co-chairs of it. We moved the tournament to Hercules Country Club in Wilmington, and we decided that maybe to really generate additional interest, in addition to some of the sports celebrities and Philadelphia personalities that were coming into this event, and the thing was barely making any money, that we would recruit a PGA player every year. And just knowing the kind of person that Chi was, the kind of show he put on, just from general knowledge of following golf, we decided to try to see if we could get Chi to come to do the first program. And we brought him in through his agent, a guy by the name of Eddie Elias out of Cleveland. And, as I say, I'd never seen him do a golf exhibition before, but I heard it was really very, very special. And he was a character. He knew that our guest the following year was going to be Fuzzy Zeller. They were pretty good friends. There was some funny things about their connection that I'll mention later. But anyway, Chi got here. We had a lot of great personalities at this event. We were at the hotel the night before, and we were about to go to dinner. Chi was in the lobby with us. We were about to go to dinner with Joe DiMaggio and Warren Spahn and a couple of other very, very prominent figures from the sports world, and invited Chi to join us. And Chi said, look, I really appreciate it, but if you don't mind, I'm gonna go back to my room and I'm gonna get some sleep. I just really want to make sure I do a really good job for, you tomorrow, for the guests that you have. And that's just very important to me. So I was kind of surprised. I thought, Chi would be a real character and a lot of fun to be around, but he went to bed. So the next day, there he was, right on schedule, and he went out on a golf hole, and he just sort of had a great time with everybody all day long. He hit shots with them. He hit trick shots. He had his photo taken with everybody, and just couldn't have been more engaging in any way. And then we had a gap of about an hour before his golf exhibition. We had dinner, and he was going to do his golf exhibition. There were about 250 people there. And I was sitting with him as he finished up something to eat. And he was watching this young young girl, probably late teens, maybe 20 years old, with Down syndrome, cleaning off the tables. And he had been watching her for a while. And I said, Chi, it's time for us to go out. Everybody's waiting for you to put on your show. And he says, wait a minute, I'll be right with you. So he goes over to this young girl, and he puts his arm around her. And the next thing I know, she takes her apron off. He takes her by the hand, and he walks her outside in front of 250 people, and he introduces her. And he says, this is my good friend. And I've decided to dedicate my show tonight to this young woman. And, everybody applauds her. She's turning bright red, but the smile never left her face. It was just so amazing what he did. But, I don't know if you've ever seen well, you probably did. If he was involved in junior golf, you probably saw his golf exhibition. And he just put on an amazing show. I mean, one of his acts was that he would hit a high fade and then he would hit a fast hook with the goal of having the two balls connect about 250 yards out with a driver. And supposedly he occasionally had those two golf balls hit each other. But from that far out, they look like two F-16s going past each other. So
isn't that cool? But what you had said about him taking the night off from maybe like a leisurely night, having some beverages, my guess is he was saving his energy because to be the full Chi-Chi took a lot out of him. And I think Lee Trevino was the same way. As much as when we saw the Merry Mex, we always saw him on. But when he wasn't on, he was actually quite quiet. And they wouldn't be the only ones that were like that. But for him to recognize in that girl and try to make her day, I mean, it probably made her day, and she probably rode that high even longer. It's the kindness. Here's my Chi-Chi story for you. I played in the U.S. Junior in 1986 at Muirfield Village, Jack's place. And we knew we were having a dinner with a guest speaker, but we didn't know who it was. And in walks this man in about the tightest suit that I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it looked like it was painted on him. And because we're so used to seeing Chi-Chi in golf clothes with the hat and everything, we almost didn't know who it was at first. And then he started like strutting around and it was like, is that Chi-Chi? Because his hair would, I don't know that I'd ever seen his hair. And then he gave us the nicest speech ever. And like, I'll just give you the long and the short of it. This is 1986. President Reagan was still in office. Nancy Reagan, the first lady, had the Just Say No program. So that was like the narrative across the country. And he started talking to us about drugs and started saying, he said, and in his accent, it just made it sound more profound. He's like, when you look in the mirror, you gotta like what you see. He's like, and if there's a problem, if you don't like what you see and you're tempted to do drugs or some harm to yourself, he's like, you don't do that. He says, there's no problem that you should ever hurt yourself. But if you think you got a problem and you need help, you give me a call. Gary Nicholas. See, Gary's Jack's son was playing in the event. He said, Gary has my phone number. You ask him for my phone number and you call me. You don't have any problem that's so serious you do drugs or harm to your body. And I thought that was so kind. I mean, wasn't expecting him, let alone that message. I had heard that message many times before, and it was like, yeah. It was kind of like the Peanuts teacher in the Charlie Brown comic strips. It's like, wah, 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 wah. But with Chi-Chi, we really listened because when he did something, he just commanded your attention. Would you agree with that, John?
I would agree with that 100%. And he certainly had that just unbelievable charisma. He also had that, that self-deprecating humor. He would tell these stories about, not being able to get into with they seem true, without any rancor or bitterness, that he would show up at, like Augusta National or at a major tournament and they wouldn't let him in. He's like, but wait a minute, I'm in the tournament. I'm Chi-Chi, and he would just say, like, I'm here to clean Arnie's shoes. He would.
Yes, he played that up. And that's a technique for people too. Make yourself vulnerable. Nothing endears you more to people than self-deprecating humor. All right. Don't take your life so seriously. I think Chi-Chi was a master of that. John Reilly.
He left.
Yep.
At least as a committee, kind of as our whole event, for the longest period of time afterwards, it was just, we'll never top this. This is our first one, and we will never top this. I mean, this guy had everybody in the palm of his hand. So, about 6 months goes by, or longer than that, right? June, 7 months. So we had the event in June. That Christmas, I have a package arrives at the house and addressed to my wife and I, and open up the package. And it is a beautiful cocktail table book of Norman Rockwell paintings. Just this all-American book, just a beautiful thing. and it came with a card, and it was a card from Chi-Chi thanking us, for our kindness and for having him at our tournament the previous year. And I opened up the book. I was looking at it this morning after I heard the news, and I opened up the book, and it was just, his note written across the front of the book, to John and to Sharon, two wonderful people. May God bless you, Chi-Chi Rodriguez. He's just like, he was the gift that kept on giving.
Yes.
What a guy.
Yes, we'll miss him terribly. One more Chi-Chi story before we move on and get into your story and some of the other stories. So as much as we started the show on a sad note, we're going to be laughing and crying at the end of the show, like in a good way, because John's got some doozies of stories. John Daly, Greg Norman, Jack Nicklaus, and French fries. Might be an Arnold story in there. So we're going to bring it all around. But I'll leave you with one more Chi-Chi story. John Reilly, by the way, the author of A Will to Win, is our guest for the third time on Party Time, My Golf Story. Brought to you by Party Drinks and also the golf real estate team of Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro from suncoastdreams.com, centered in the Sarasota area. So Chi-Chi was telling this, or somebody told me the story, and it has to be true. It was somebody that was in the know. But remember when two of the Nicklaus sons were we had more Gary and Jack, but Jack the second was struggling with his short game, and Jack Nicklaus couldn't really help him because Jack famously would say, I didn't have to work on my short game. So he didn't really know much about it, which is true. But Chi-Chi was a master. He was probably the master of the short game before Seve Ballesteros came along. And so Chi-Chi offered, he said to Jack, why don't you send Jackie to Puerto Rico for 2 weeks? Give me 2 weeks with him. And off Jackie went to Puerto Rico and worked on his short game with Chi-Chi. I mean, can you imagine? Like, hey, just send your son over for 2 weeks. We'll just work everything out. I mean, what a gift. He was so generous with everything. So I suppose I'll move on. And but Chi-Chi may come up in the conversation again. The book, John, how's it going? A Will to Win. I read it, loved it. I told you that. I know I'm not the only one. We're, a month and a half or two after the release. How is it going?
Book is going great. The feedback has been unbelievable. It got off to, such a great start with the event in Huntington Valley, and over 200 in attendance. The great Harry Donahue, who is just a fabulous host for things like that, and who led the panel with the great Jay Siegel and Gordon Brewer and Bill Hyman V, who we call King. So I just don't know how you could have had a better start. And it has continued from there. I have events coming up that, books as tea gifts and books at various other events and book signings. But the best part has just been a steady stream of comments and feedback and connections to people that, you'd really never expect. I had a guy contact me, his name is Cliff Miller, and turned out that Cliff was a best friend of Bill's son, Tommy. And anyway, he was a great player. He's a golfer. And he got picked up in the draft in the late 60s and went off to Vietnam and had a extremely difficult tour, as anybody would, with the 5th Mechanized Infantry Division in Vietnam. And, I think it took a big toll on him. Eventually, I think as a catharsis, so to speak, he wrote a memoir of his year in Vietnam called Out the Wire. And, some of it is just beyond hair-raising. something on the order of like 200 night ambushes and just these incredibly tense moments, combat, etc., for a whole year of his life. And you can just imagine going from the Huntington Valley Country Club to the middle of a war zone. You know, you're this suburban kid, and it's so life-changing. And he's just one individual. It's brought him like back into the family. He just has been just a fabulous connection, and he's just one example of those who have, you know, provided all this incredible feedback about how much they love the story, how much they love the book, and just a real satisfying last month and a half.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've written 3 books, and you're singing my song on that, because I think we write books because we want the challenge. We want to tell stories. We want to tie up loose ends. It's a creative endeavor. You feel alive when you write, because there's always something to think about, and there's always something to tinker with and everything. So it really consumes you, and just nice feedback from some people. And it's not always who you would expect it to be. It just makes it so fulfilling. And because what I think a lot of readers never get is the grind. And you and I know the grind, the deadlines, the writing, the editing, the marketing, the promotion of things. It's like you can write a book and then the real hard work starts, but it's so worth it when you get those comments. And I would say in the books that I've written, being able to share some stuff and share books with my school teachers at Abington High School, I tried to contact every school teacher I ever had, and I think I found about 15 or 16 of them, wrote them handwritten notes and sent them a copy of my book, The Perfect Catch. And because I wrote about my hometown, I wrote about streets, I wrote about my teachers, I wrote about my friends. So naturally, I thought they would like that too. And then they would add stories about some of the people that I wrote about. I'm like, I wish I knew that before I wrote it, because I would have added that. But it just, that's the sharing, and I think more than anything, author to author.
I literally was at my high school today. In fact, Salesianum High School in Wilmington, and I took a book down for their library, which I signed for the school, and that's the 4th book. So my friend Kevin and I was co-author of his book, Tackling Life. He made the crack at a kickoff event for I think it was my Porky Oliver book, that if I published one more book, they were going to change my grade in English at my high school from a C to a B. So I'd probably
wait a minute. You were a C student and you've become a golf historian and a noted author. Hey, there's hope for all. You know what? Hey, but John, tell me this. I am a much better student now as an adult than I was when I was in school, because now I'm learning about things I want to learn about, and I take deeper dives. Is that your story too, or is it different?
There's nothing like being a lifelong learner. I spent 3 hours on the Brandywine battlefield in the rain yesterday, up in Chadsford and Chester County. Tracing Washington and Lafayette steps, and it's just I'm up there and I'm going, why didn't I ever know this stuff? At my age, I should know these things. It's only 15 miles up the road, the greatest battle in the history of the Revolutionary War. So it's the same way with writing. It's the best way to learn things. I mean, I've learned more from my writing than don't tell the University of Delaware than I probably did in 4 years of college.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I don't remember anything about college. Well, there are a couple good parties. I can't remember all the details from those, but I'm sure they were good. And Kevin, I'm sure you might have some of those too.
While you were speaking, I was trying to check when we're talking about feedback of the book. A lot of the feedback has not been coming directly to me. It's been coming to the family. In particular, has been coming to Bill Hyman V, King. And here's a note. I'll just read it. It's pretty short. First of all, King told me it was written by a friend of his who caddied at Huntington Valley, and went on to become a renowned orthopedic surgeon. And he had written to Hyman, he wrote, "I just finished the book about your granddad. I kept saying to myself, my God, what a life. He truly was an extraordinary person, and you were so lucky to have him, but also inherited so many of his great qualities. The part about overcoming the negative thoughts that was really revealing. I would have never guessed that about him. It's something I've struggled with my whole life. I wonder how much less stress I would have had if I just didn't always assume the worst possible outcome was inevitable. Definitely something I'm going to work on going forward. So many of life's lessons in over 200 pages. I'm going to recommend this book to everybody I know." So, you get these things and...
Okay, hold on. Let's put the name in. It's Dr. Matt Garbarina.
Went to Notre Dame, right?
He went to Notre Dame. He was at Air Force ROTC. He went to Bishop McDevitt High School. He was crack smart. I mean, but he was a rascal in the caddy yard, and he would bust your golf balls all day long, and I'd give it right back. But you know what? In the end, we knew that guy was going to be a success, and the fact that he is an orthopedic surgeon is a surprise to nobody. He was that smart. We knew he was on the up and up. He hitched his wagon to the right people at Huntington Valley, but he did it right, and he earned it. Everything he has, he earned it. And that's the beauty of caddying. And what a nice note. It sensed you were getting a little emotional as you were reading that too.
It's funny because I didn't know who it was. King just described him. He didn't mention the name.
Oh, I just named who it was, and we'll make sure that we send him a link to the podcast so he knows we're talking about. And when I interviewed King about your book, about his grandfather, his name came up too, because we talked about our caddy experiences and like who went on to bigger and better things. I mean, I graduated to a life of mediocrity, and then somebody like Dr. Matt Garbarina fulfilled like everything that we thought he would and became a shining star and has helped so many people along the way. Speaking of caddies, we talked about your caddy experience and how it was kind of the family business with Italians and the Irish in Wilmington at the day, back in the day. But as you were an adult and you caddied for some real characters in different events, all of whom we know, and there was just some funny stuff. What's the Fuzzy Zeller story and you caddying for him?
Well, that was, to me, it was like a dream come true. So if you look at the golf tour in 1986, Greg Norman was #1 in the world. Fuzzy Zeller was top 10. He won 3 times that year, and he had in '84, he had clobbered Norman in the playoff for the U.S. Open at Winged Foot. And I had gotten to know Peter Jacobson a little bit through some corporate outings. And we put the 3 of them together it originally was going to start out to be a reprise of Winged Foot. And then with Peter, it just became a different type of show. But we decided that with 2 of my other co-chairs, we decided that we would be the caddies, and we kind of drew lots, and I got Fuzzies, and that was an experience. I mean, he is one of the true characters, to ever play the game. In addition to being one heck of a player, I had gone to meet him before this at I think it was at Hilton Head, and both he and Chi-Chi were playing at Hilton Head at the Heritage, and Fuzzy comes over to me and he goes, "Hey, Pard," he called everybody Pard. He said, "I'm looking forward to being there in Wilmington playing your event, but don't expect me to do that shit Chi-Chi does. I can't do that shit Chi-Chi does."
But he doesn't have to do Chi-Chi shit. He's got his own shit. So what did he do?
He parks himself on a golf hole, right? He's hitting shots in with everybody, and they put a porta potty out there. Well, the first thing he does is he scribbles on a sign, and he goes over and he plasters it on the front of the porta potty, and it says Chi-Chi's condo. He goes over and points to it. Has his photograph taken to send it off to Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi's condo. But caddying for Fuzzy in that exhibition. So we were raising money for leukemia, and I forget the exact numbers, but we had I don't know, every birdie was going to add another $2,000 to the pot or $2,500. We did a little auction in the beginning. Well, they make 19 birdies between the three of them. Well, I should say they made 17 birdies and 2 eagles, which obviously we doubled it again for the Eagles. And the golf was spectacular, but it was all, incredibly laid back kind of golf. I mean, it wasn't high pressure. They were just having a good time between the three of them, and the banter back and forth was incredible. I get to the 15th hole, and Fuzzy, I mean, it's pretty, they still, in that last, I would just say this last minute or 30 seconds after they walk up the fairway, they go to that golf ball, they get deadly serious, right? So I put the bag down, which weighed a ton, by the way. And he goes, how far is it? And I said, play at 165. I'd played this hole, 100 times in my life. I said, play at 165. He gets over the ball. I don't know if you remember those mannerisms he has where he sort of bounces the club head behind the ball and kind of sets it past the ball. It's really unusual.
Yeah, it's like the ball's off the hosel. It looks like a shank's coming.
Yeah. He picks the club up and points it right at me. There's like a couple thousand people there right behind me, the gallery. And he points it at me and he goes, I will decide how to play it. You just tell me how far it is, and he just whacks the shot. Another hole, he hit a ball out in the rough, and only 3 people went up with us. I went up with him. Obviously, I'm lugging the club, and it's a 600-yard par 5 with a stream about 60 yards in front of the hole. He says, give me the 3-wood. I said, Fuzz, you can't hit it over that stream from here. He said, give me the 3-wood. And I'm looking at the ball down in the rough. And he gets over the ball and just rips this thing out of the rough and throws the club back at me. And he goes, I didn't come here to play safe, Part. I didn't come here to play safe. That ball lands like a foot over the stream.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, so good how they could hit the ball. And, of course, we got done. We were wearing the Masters, outfits, like the overalls.
The coveralls. Yeah, they look great. They feel awful. Yeah, just get in one and go walk 18 holes with 40 pounds on your back.
And he autographed my uniform. Hey, John, how far is it? But he walked up on the last green, and he had about a 20-foot putt. He looked at it from every direction, and he says, turns to the gallery, goes, how many think it breaks right? A few people raise their hand. He goes, how many people think it breaks left? And a few more people raise their hand. And he says, how many have no idea? And he raises his hand. He leans right over, he rolls it from 20 feet. It goes dead center. Everybody goes crazy. I'm having a beer with him afterwards, and I said, Fuzz, you would look like an idiot if you didn't make that putt. He says, Hard, when I walked on that green, I saw the line. When I see the line, the ball's going in the hole. I mean, the confidence level, your top 10 player in the world is just off the charts, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And social golf, when it seems like they're not even trying, they're almost even better because they're not feeling the pressure. And any touring pro, when they're in their prime, they're going out to any course and they're going to shoot 6-7 under like it's nothing. That's cool. Now, what's the John Daly story? And what's the timing of this?
By the way, just one more thing about that Fuzzy and Greg Norman. That night we had dinner at Longwood Gardens, and you know what a place that is. And everybody showed up in suits. And Norman came in a white jacket. And anyway, Peter Jacobson didn't have a jacket, and Norman left early, and he borrowed his jacket. And Fuzzy goes, "Give me that jacket." And he autographs the back of Norman's white sport coat, and he auctioned it off for the crowd. So
it's so funny.
But Daly was unbelievable. So you know what it was like. What's that? 91 when he won the PGA?
91, yeah. He was the like 8th or 9th alternate because Nick Price, his wife, was having a baby. So John Daly's in. Nobody knew who he was, and then all of a sudden we all knew who he was.
Crazy, far crazier than your Pete Oakley story winning the British Senior Open. I mean, just impossible, right? That this guy's going to win it. So he becomes, just instant fame.
Yep.
Right away, our whole committee, we got to get John Daly. He's the biggest thing in golf. So we get John Daly signed. I don't even remember his agent's name. It was a real character. But anyway, we get John Daly signed, and he had that girlfriend who becomes pregnant, right? And turns out that the due date is the date of our tournament. And, I don't think that relationship lasted very long. I don't even think they ever got married. But
well, there have been a few, and it's all documented in his book, and he goes into exquisite detail.
So I'm back and forth on the phone with the agent that night, and he's going, "Well, she hasn't had the baby yet." And he said he's not coming if she doesn't have the baby. I said, we got hundreds of people coming tomorrow to see John Daly. What do you mean he's not coming? So we're back and forth. So next morning, I learned she's had the baby, and I get on the phone with the guy who says, "Well, he's scared to death of flying. He doesn't want to fly." And this is like the morning of the event. So it just got crazy. Finally, he calls me back about 9:00, and he said, he's on a plane. We got him on a plane. And I don't know what we're going to do. It's coming into Philadelphia. So one of the guys on the committee says, one of the guys on the committee ran the River and Bay Authority, and he had his own police force. So he said, I'll get a cop car. We'll go up there to the airport and get him. So we hop in the cop car to go up to Philadelphia to get John Daly. Out he comes, and I mean, he just looks awful. Even worse than John Daly normally looks, right? The hair and the no sleep and everything. And hi, I'm John Daly. And he gets in the car, and I'm going, this is going to be awful. And he gets in the car, and we pull away from the Philadelphia airport, and we're already, a couple hours late for the event. And he goes, "Hey, you guys have got to drive me straight to a McDonald's. I have got to get a Big Mac, like right now." He was like coming apart. So we found a McDonald's on the way back.
How many Big Macs? How many Big Macs did he wolf down?
He orders 2 Big Macs. Now we got about another 20 minutes to the golf course. He wolfs down both Big Macs. He gets out of the car. We're trying to get his clubs out. We're trying to get him together. He gets to the car. He looks at me and he goes, "Get me 2 Budweisers." Get me 2 Budweiser. So,
and meantime, he's like 23 years old, and he's young. You're like older, and he's having you fetch beers for him.
Oh yeah, and he's puffing away on a cigarette, of course, the whole time. And I'm going, this guy is just a mess. And we get in a golf cart because now the whole tournament is all confused. We're trying to figure out, and like somebody come up to me and they come up and they said, "Well, John, take him out to the 8th hole, and we'll work our way backwards there. Have him hit a shot wherever he lands, hit a shot, and get a photo with everybody." So he literally, we drive to the far end of the golf course, which must take 10, 15 minutes in a cart. And there's a whole caravan of us, and he has his head slumped down like he is passed out the whole time. And he's occasionally, looking up and chug-a-lugging the Budweiser. So we get to the hill, and there's about 10 people waiting. They just can't wait to see John Daly. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is going to be a disaster when they see this guy. And he pops out of the cart like nothing had happened and just, hey, guys, hey, anybody like to see me hit a shot here? You know, somebody hands him a 3-wood, and it was the longest. Oh, no. They hand him a 3-wood. He takes his big swing, and he cold tops the ball. And he just goes, no, give me another ball. Give me another ball. And the next one he hit with a 3-wood flew 300 yards. I mean, and these people, it didn't stop all day long. Every time he hit a shot, people would just like hoot and holler, and they just had a blast. I mean,
everybody loves him. Well, because to call him the common man is that's a stretch. The common man just does not wolf down 2 Big Macs
and doesn't have
and demand Budweisers from somebody that's old enough to be his father. But whatever, the legend grows with him. Speaking of a true legend, what's the story with one of your previous books, Jack Nicklaus and Rory McIlroy and stolen French fries?
Oh my God! So a great friend of mine, Charlie Horn, calls me up or sends me an email about 2 years ago. And he says, hey, John, how'd you like to have lunch with Jack Nicklaus? And I said, wow, where and when? He said, Palm Beach, such and such a date. I said, I'll be there. So anyway, off to Florida I go. And it turns out, so he was helping Betsy King. Betsy King runs a charity called, series of golf tournaments and charity events called Golf for Africa with fellow LPGA players. And Charlie agreed to make a major contribution. I should say it started with Jack. Betsy King asked them a favor, would you do this? And he said, sure. And so I end up in the foursome for lunch. Jack says, I don't play golf anymore. You know, like, so off we go to the Bears Club in Florida. And, you know, I mean, it's great. Everybody's relaxed at lunch, you know, except for you're telling yourself the whole time, dear God, it's Jack Nicklaus. You know, I mean, it's the one and only Jack Nicklaus. And he's asking questions about Porky Oliver because I just read the book. You know, he says, yeah, I remember Porky. I didn't really know him, but, you know, I mean, I was a kid at the time, but, you know, he's a pretty big name and everything. And I hand him the book and I sign it for him, you know, to Jack from John Reilly. And he looks at it and he goes, yeah, I don't read much anymore. He goes like, but as I'm sitting there, Charlie's sitting right next to him, and Charlie keeps making these motions with his head, you know, like John, look to the side, look to the side. So I look over, and who's standing 5 feet from me but Rory McIlroy? I went, oh wow, how about this? Quite a show here. Well, he's having lunch with Michael Berger. Is it Michael? Yeah, Berger. And anyway, I said, Jack, do you think Rory would like a book? And he goes,
Daniel Berger.
Daniel Berger, that's right.
He's Daniel Berger, yeah.
He's had a couple tough years. So
yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, back props. Other
so
things.
Anyway, Jack goes, hey, Rory, John Reilly from Wilmington wants to show you something. So Rory, I'm a perfect gentleman. You know, he gets up from the table and he goes, John, nice to meet you. I'm coming to Wilmington this year. And what do you have here? You know, and I hand him the book. He's going, yeah. He says, I'm going to read this. This looks great. I'm going to read this. And I said, well, here, let me sign it for you. So I signed the book to Rory McIlroy. You know, I'm very nervous about all this, you know, at this point. Mm-hmm. And I leave the table. I go back and I sit down. And Jack kind of leans forward a little bit and says something, and the other 3 guys at the table are just laughing their heads off. And I'm kind of like, what are they laughing about? I had figured it had something to do with, you know, with the Rory thing. And I said, Jack, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. And he leans over and out loud and he goes, "John, I ate your French fries." So when I got up to go to the table, they said, Nicholas said, "Hey, push his plate over here. I want his French fries." And ate my French fries. I said, but the best part of it was when we were walking out afterwards, I went, "How about that? I just had lunch with Jack Nicklaus and Rory McIlroy, and I gave them the autographs." So
that's cool. That's cool. And the stolen French fries is priceless. That's the oldest rule. You
There's
can't
another
leave.
little part to that, by the way, Jack.
Go ahead. Yeah, continue.
One other thing, Jack says, "Sharon, you guys have been playing golf down here." I said, Yeah, we played. He says, "Where'd you play?" I said, "Well, yesterday we played at Seminole." And he goes, "Seminole. It's a real nice course, but they got lousy food."
Can't have it all. I mean, you have everything else there. I mean, you've got the course, you've got the history, you got the views there, and the food. It shouldn't be that way. It's everything should be perfect. You know what I mean?
Well, I had lunch there the day before. It was terrific. So I'm going like, Jack, lunch was pretty good, actually.
Jack has high standards, and maybe in French fries, he knew the French fries at his place, the Bears Club, were so good. So when you turned your head, he couldn't resist. So he just helped himself. Hey, we're getting a little tight on time here, John. Maybe if you can give me one good story. We talked part one, Howdy Giles, Arnold Palmer's dentist and his close friend. You got a good Howdy Arnold story together, or just an Arnold by himself?
I have a bunch of Arnie Howdy stories. They're just great memories. Probably my favorite, though, is 1985. Arnie was 55. He was, at that time, making a splash on the senior tour. He was still just a fine player for sure. And we had him as our guest attraction that year, 1985. And it all worked out. Howdy had made the arrangements with IMG. And anyway, the Bell Atlantic Classic up at Chester Valley was, the couple days before. And Arnie was in contention the whole time, pretty much head to head with Don January.
Mm-hmm.
And as it turns out, Arnie loses to Don January. We were having a dinner that night at the fantastic, Winter Estate. And I mean, this is being attended by the governor, Joe DiMaggio, Warren Spahn, Franco Harris, name the celebrity, actors, Richard Roundtree. It just Spanky McFarlane from the Oregon Kids, just quite an event. And of course, it's still Arnold Palmer. So everybody wants to see Arnold Palmer there. And Howdy calls me up and he says, "John, Arnie is on his second vodka, and he has informed me that he is not going to the dinner." And it wasn't in his contract or anything. It was just to show up the next day. But, of course, everybody had these expectations Arnie would be there. So I said, "Oh, Howdy, anything you can do, anything you can do." He says, "Well, Carolyn and Winnie, his wife Carolyn and Winnie are working on him. And he's having another vodka." So anyway.
So we're on vodka number 3?
I sounded like it.
Okay.
So I call Howdy back about another 15 minutes later. "Howdy, what's going on?" He says, "John, still nothing." He still says, "I ain't going. I'm not going out." He said, "You know how much he doesn't like losing to Don January. He's just really upset." I said, "Well, Howdy, we got a couple hundred people sitting out there hoping to see Arnold Palmer." "Well, the ladies are still working on it. I'll get back to you." And it literally hangs up 5 minutes later. He says, "John, he's going. He's going to come. He's all set. He's getting dressed now. He has one request. He does not have to speak." And I said, "Oh, Howdy, sure. He doesn't have to speak." Now, of course, I'm sitting at the table next to him. He's sitting at the table with the governor, Franco Harris, and Joe DiMaggio and everybody. And he's pretty relaxed. He's having a good time. I got about 10 people who walked up to me and said, "When's Arnie going to talk? When's Arnie going to say something?" So I'm feeling the pressure. So I finally walk over to the table, just as friendly as could be. Everybody having a nice time. Arnie, how you doing tonight? Winnie, how you doing? So I said, Arnie, how about you get up and say a couple words?
How was that received?
And I mean, Arnie this is the great Arnold Palmer. He just goes, howdy. You told me I wasn't going to have to talk. And Winnie shoves an elbow into his side and says, Arnie, get up. The people want to hear from you. Mm-hmm. He just gets up and he goes, and he was great. He got over to the microphone. He was fine. But that look he threw howdy and said, howdy, you told me I was not going to have to talk.
Well, what are you going to do? You got to satisfy the people. He was a man of the people. He's legendary for saying, these people didn't come to see me lay up. Of course he's going to get up. And he probably says something really nice, too, didn't he?
He was great. Yeah, he was fine.
John, I could talk to you all day. I kept you longer like I did the first two episodes. Listen, man, thanks for all you do. Thanks for the memories and the good stories. You're always welcome to come back to talk about A Will to Win. Congratulations on that book. I loved it. I can't recommend it enough for everybody else. And maybe there's a fifth book in you. Who knows?
Thank you, Kevin.
Yep. Yeah. And then when that time comes, then you just come on back. All right. So we'll call it a day with John Reilly, the author of A Will to Win. It's available. It's been streaming across the bottom of the screen throughout our conversation here. awilltowin.com. That's where you go get it, and it'll be well worth your time, and it's a good gift for everybody else. So for John Reilly, I'm Kevin Walsh. Big thanks to our title sponsors, Party Drinks. If you're looking for a good golf alternative, Party is for you. And also a big thanks to the Golf Real Estate Pros, Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro, suncoastdreams.com, a division of fine properties in the Sarasota area. If your dream's to live on a golf course, talk to Vince, talk to Gene. They'll get you all set up, and then you and I will tee it up. John, you got to come down to Florida, play some golf with me, all right?
Look forward to it.
All right, sounds good. For John Reilly, I'm Kevin Walsh. We'll see you again next time on Party Time, My Golf Story.
See ya.
You've been listening to It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers, and the Golf Real Estate Pros, Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoastdreams.com or call 941-220-4000.
This is Vince Visicaro and Gene Walsh with the suncoastdreams.com real estate team at Fine Properties. We've helped hundreds of families find their dream homes in golf and resort communities in Lakewood Ranch, Bradenton, Sarasota, Parrish, Venice, and the surrounding areas.
Let us be your guides to finding your dream home here as well. Learn more at suncoastdreams.com or call us at 941-220-4000.